take a little time out and come along with the pet detectives on their endless adventures that will take our brave team just down the block and around the world. From finding lost pets and loved ones to solving mysteries where others have failed. All you need to bring is your imagination and your sense of humor. Episode 3, The Missing Prize Bull. On our last episode, the pet detectives entered the parade to advertise their name, saved young Billy, and now have been hired for their first real detective job to help find a lost prize bull. This had our team very excited. Our pet detective group, who are made up of Pepe, the ill-mannered Chihuahua, Charlie, the French Brittany Spaniel, Bailey, the beautiful Siamese cat with her ever-present pearl necklace, Samuel and Isaac, the twin red foxes that can only be told apart by Isaac's black-rimmed glasses, Colonel the Chewiener dog, Ruger, the big bird dog with an even bigger bark, Polly Opossum, the possum, and Thomas, the little country boy. Now, their pet detective team arrived at the Callahan Ranch in the Sierra foothills to help find their lost prize-winning bull. When they arrived, Mrs. Callahan was brushing her horse, so the twin red foxes, Samuel and Isaac, gladly took over for her because they love horses. Meanwhile, Bailey, the Siamese cat, could get all the details on the missing bull. Mrs. Callahan explained that her bull, Bocephus, has gone missing, and sometimes he's just a big ham and likes to go talk to the neighbor's cattle. But this time he's nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Colonel the Chewiener dog was carefully going over a map of the large Callahan Ranch. Now, Mrs. Callahan explained that Bocephus is a prize-winning bull despite that his front legs are shorter than his rear legs. Mrs. Callahan also said they thought it was since he was raised in a mountain and cattle always eat facing uphill, and Bocephus loves to eat, that his front legs just never grew. However, he's on flat ground, and around the barn he wears roller skates on his front legs to help keep him level. His mom, Mrs. Butterscotch, who sews all of her own clothes, can easily be spotted in her colorful dresses she's invented, the moo-moos. She has plenty of pictures of her baby boy that could give our team a clearer picture of what the champion bull looks like. All the while, Charlie scoured the barnyard looking for clues. Oh, now where's little Thomas and Ruger? Well, Thomas is back from helping his great-granddad harvest peanuts in Texas. With the money he earned, he bought a used canoe that he and Ruger are working on to fix up. However, Thomas's mom is always in a perpetual state of spring cleaning. This makes Ruger and little Thomas duty-bound to help in and around the house with all the cleaning until they pass his mom's inspection before they can return to fixing up their canoe. Meanwhile, after looking at several of Mrs. Butterscotch's photo albums, Bailey told Mrs. Butterscotch that the pet detectives will find her baby boy, and this brought great comfort to Mrs. Butterscotch. And Mrs. Butterscotch gave Bailey her cowbell, saying that he always comes when she rings her cowbell. Just then Charlie cries out, "Over here! I have found some suspicious-looking tracks that do not match any of the other tracks in the corral." So off they went. Charlie, using his very sensitive nose to pick up the scent, left behind by the bull nappers. At least that's what Pepe named him. Pepe says, "I'm pretty good at calling people names." Pepe completely unaware of just what he said and how rude it sounds. Now, with our team looking for clues and following Charlie's lead and his nose, along with Colonel the Chewiener dog and with his compass and map, our pet detective team is smart, and they know it's one thing to find Bocephus, but they have to mark their trail so they can find their way back. And quickly it's getting dark. So Colonel constantly marked the ranch map and checked his little compass to ensure that they could all safely return to the ranch house. Samuel and Isaac, the twin red foxes, heard some voices up ahead. There in the trees they spotted a campfire. The boys quickly told the rest of the team, so they could all quietly approach the campfire without being detected themselves. As the pet detectives hid behind the pine trees that surrounded the campfire, they could see that there was two young boys that were from a local soccer team. Now these boys weren't mean, just misguided in their decisions. They are on a soccer team that is losing, and losing a lot, and no one is coming to watch them play. So they thought if they had a cool mascot like Bocephus and a cool name like the Bull Rangers instead of Uncle Slicky's Donut Holes, that they could start winning and people would come out and watch them. So they lured Bocephus away from the ranch house with a huge apple pie. Now the two boys, Timmy and Roger, wore their blue hospital mask and their soccer uniforms with their numbers and names on back. No, I didn't say they were good bull nappers. I said they were just bull nappers. Then on top of all their plans going wrong for them, they were soon to find out that the one thing Bocephus loves as much as apple pie is he loves to talk, and talk non-stop. As Bocephus was eating his pie, Timmy and Roger were trying to figure out where they are and how can they stop Bocephus from talking and talking and talking. Our pet detective team was quietly listened in to Bocephus as he rambled on and on and on, and they could hear him say, "Well, my mommy told me Bocephus, my mommy always calls me Bocephus. Unless I'm in trouble, then she calls me Junior. That's what they call me at my square dancing class, is Junior Bocephus. However, my grandma likes to call me Potty Pants, but she likes to joke a lot, and I yada yada yada, on and on, blah blah blah." Now Timmy and Roger were at their wits' end and didn't know how to turn down or turn off Bocephus, and he's just about done eating his huge apple pie. Then the pet detective team were forming a plan on how to get Bocephus home. He was having a grand time eating his apple pie, sitting by the campfire amongst the tall pine trees and talking non-stop about himself. This is not turning out like Timmy and Roger thought it would. In fact, nothing is turning out like they've had planned. Meanwhile, Bailey had been holding on to Mrs. Butterscotch's cowbell to keep it silent. Bailey told them, "I'll ring the bell and everyone can start crying out Junior to Bocephus, and he'll think it's his mother calling for him, and he'll go home." They all agreed, and Bailey started ringing the cowbell, and everyone started yelling, "Junior! Junior!" Bocephus immediately stopped eating his apple pie. Now, Bocephus, he likes apple pie, but he loves his mommy. Bocephus cried out, "Mommy!" Bailey kept ringing the cowbell, and the pet detective team kept crying out, "Junior! Junior!" Bocephus could not contain himself. He dropped his apple pie and took off running uphill, back to the ranch house. Now no one can catch Bocephus running uphill because of his front short legs. He is built for running uphill. With his napkin tied around his neck and his blue roller skates hanging over his neck, Bocephus stormed up the hill back home to his mommy. Now Timmy and Roger were caught, but happy this was over. Now that this part was over, the pet detectives explained that they will have to come back to the ranch and apologize to Mrs. Butterscotch for making her worry so much. And she wasn't very happy about all this. Now Timmy and Roger were sweating heavily, having to meet and apologize to Mrs. Butterscotch. They respectfully, with hat in hand, apologized to Mrs. Callahan and Mrs. Butterscotch. And Mrs. Callahan and Mrs. Butterscotch said they were forgiven, but to never do that again. However, all that really did happen is Bocephus had a long walk and an apple pie for all of his troubles. And once Mrs. Callahan and Mrs. Butterscotch heard about the story of their hard-luck soccer team, Bocephus was more than happy to be the mascot for the new Bull Rangers, and they could drop the Uncle Slicky's Donut Holes name. No offense to Uncle Slicky, that is. So the next soccer game, Bocephus had on his jersey and he gave all the kids rides on his back. Mrs. Butterscotch had sewn her new moo-moo outfit, in team colors of course, and attended the game, ringing her cowbell in support of the new Bull Rangers. Now Mrs. Callahan thanked the team and paid Bailey, and also gave the team 2 ponies that she had just rescued. They also could keep them here at the Callahan Ranch and riding stables. Well, the boys Samuel and Isaac were beside themselves with joy. Charlie was happy as a little puppy on Christmas morning. Colonel thought, oh, how beautiful the ponies are. And now Pepe, he was feeling a little upset. He heard Bocephus was a big ham. He thought, great, can't wait to find the ham. Then he heard prize-winning beef cattle. And he thought, wonderful, can't wait to find some of this award-winning beef. Colonel explained to Pepe that ham and beef were just metaphors. Colonel could see that Pepe didn't know what a metaphor is. So Colonel explained a metaphor is a figure of speech used to describe something, and the word is not really that thing's name. Pepe stood there with a blank look on his face, and Colonel understood that Pepe didn't understand. Then Colonel said, you know, like when you call me short stack, and I'm not really a stack of pancakes. And like when you call Samuel and Isaac the Tangerine Boys, because they're orange and you can't tell them apart. Pepe said, oh, I get it, like a nickname. Yes, Colonel replied. Then Pepe said, what's my metaphor/nickname? Colonel got very nervous and didn't know how to answer. And Pepe said, I bet it's really a cool nickname like Pepperoni or Dr. Pepser. So what is it? Colonel got very quiet and didn't want to say anything. And then he said, yeah, that's it, Dr. Pepster. I mean, like what else could it be? Now Pepe is a loyal friend, but he's still working on being able to laugh at himself and not just take everything so seriously. Now with money in hand and the 2 new ponies in the barn that they had named Blaze and Rosie, the pet detective team headed back down from the foothills to their new office they'd rented in town, and they're sharing with a feed store. So now they can buy feed and all the things they need for Blaze and Rosie, their 2 new ponies. When they got back to the office, Polly Opossum was answering the phone and taking care of all the business that needs to be done to keep the pet detectives in business. However, she was excited to hear about Bocephus, the soccer team, the Bull Rangers, and the 2 new rescue ponies, Blaze and Rosie. Polly Opossum said, I got good news too. I've received many phone calls today, asking about our services. Most of them were from the parade when you saved young Billy. However, the big news is there's a man from a horse racing track in Southern California that called and said he has a problem down there and he is worried about his racehorse. And can we come down and help him solve his mystery? Oh yeah, said Charlie, and the boys Samuel and Isaac both high-fived each other saying, giddy up. So tune in for our next adventure and see how our pet detective team try and help out their racehorses on the adventure of the pet detectives. Now Charlie wants to remind everyone, hit the like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. And Little Colonel says, by all means leave a comment, a real comment, not metaphorically speaking, and it's always nice to share this thing with other people. And we'll see you next time on the adventures of the pet detectives.